Do you suffer from debilitating migraines? You know, that throbbing pain in the front or side of your head that's so severe you're unable to work or do anything other than retreat into a dark and quiet room? Have you had them for years and just haven't found a solution? Call Dr. Elizabeth Eversole and put an end to your debilitating migraines forever, or go to her website at www.handmadehealth.com. That's www.handmadehealth.com.
Well, hello, everybody. Balls to the Wall, episode number 18. I'm your host, Kenny Matthews, my co-host, my man, Billy Martin Jr. How are you doing on this lovely Wednesday as the weather changes again in the Metroplex?
It's a beautiful, strange hump day. Remember, it was supposed to be in the 20s this morning. It was beautiful, so who knows?
It's crazy. It's like it's 80 degrees, 75 degrees a couple days, and it's in the 20s for a couple days. It's been a strange winter, to say the least, but let's just hope we don't have another February 5th of 2021.
I haven't looked in the Farmer's Almanac yet, but it feels like one's on the way.
Well, man, we really do appreciate you guys listening to us here on episode number 18. My man Billy and myself. Hey, please subscribe to us at YouTube and Rumble, and we got a couple new ones in Anchor and Spotify. All you need to do is click on there and subscribe. It helps us out big time if you do that. And I promise you, it only take you about 10 seconds to do. It's not hard. Please like us also on Twitter and Facebook, and we always welcome your comments and suggestions at any time. We know we're not perfect at all, so please bring in any ideas or anything that you think we should bring to the table, and we will definitely do it because, man, that's what we like to do. We want this to be interesting for you guys. So, Billy, I don't know. It's kind of a slow moment in a way in sports, so we're going to kind of concentrate on Super Wildcard Weekend last weekend, and boy, a few surprises. A few blowouts, which we kind of thought, and this is the one thing that when you add teams to the playoffs, you have teams that probably are not ready for the playoffs that are automatically in the playoffs now. And I think we saw a couple of those last weekend ourselves. When you add additional, it kind of dilutes the playoffs. The what I call it, the competition level dilutes a little bit there because there's a big difference generally from the number 2 seed to the number 7 seed in most cases. And we did see that a little bit this weekend. But Billy, man, we got to start off with Vegas and Cincinnati. I mean, that was the first game on Saturday. And I don't know about you, Billy. I kind of like having that 3-4 o'clock game on that Saturday now. It's kind of nice to have that. You can get some stuff done beforehand and boom, we got football, and then we know we're going to have a game later on that night. I'm kind of like that idea.
I do, and as much as we kind of banged on the Monday night national championship, I did like having the playoff.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was thinking the same thing. I was going, this Monday night playoff is not bad. It's a difference a week makes, is what I said to myself, because I was almost bored to tears, footballed out a little the following Monday with the national championship game, but I was glued to the set on Monday with the Rams in Arizona. I mean, it wasn't much of a football game, but I mean, it had me at least interested throughout the day, saying, hey, we got a game tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. That was cool. I like them spreading it out a little bit.
Yeah, I did. I liked it spread it out. I mean, I think last year they had 3 games on Saturday and 3 games on Sunday, I think it was last year. So, I kind of liked it, where they kind of catacombed it a little bit, and you had the 3 on Sunday, the 2 on Saturday. So, yeah, it was fun. And like I said, we started off with the Vegas and Cincinnati. And one thing I can say, it looks like Joe Burrow is going to be a pretty good quarterback in the National Football League. That was the one thing I got from there, because how many times does quarterbacks make their first start in the playoffs and play that well? That's
Well, it's funny because to me, so many quarterbacks make or break almost their career, it feels like, on that first playoff game.
Yep.
You know, look what we're watching in Dallas, and what we would give as a Cowboy fan to just get 2 wins in the playoffs. Come on, and to see a guy like that do that, I'm so enthused. I wouldn't be totally shocked if they made it past Tennessee. And I know that's crazy, but wow.
Well, they're a hot team right now. I mean, they played really well down the stretch. I mean, that last game, a lot of their players didn't play because the seeding didn't matter at that point in time. But I mean, to beat the Raiders twice in one given season too, I mean, that tells you that they're a pretty good football team. And he's got a lot of young people to throw to at the wide receiver spot. His former teammate down there in LSU is not too bad. Joe Mixon is running like a borderline all-star Pro Bowl type running back now for them. That it just seems so strange to be talking about the Bengals in a positive light. It just doesn't roll off the tongue right, does it?
No, Bengal. Yeah, I mean, which could be a whole nother subject if we wanted to talk about some of these swimmers that have been guys, but I'm a fan. Burrow's got me hooked.
Yep. Well, and one thing I wanted to kind of say about that game also is I thought, why did Derek Carr spike the ball at that point in time? I mean, you had enough time just to come up there and call a play during that time, because you needed plays as opposed to maybe so much the time at that point in time, because it ended up turning the ball over to Cincinnati, and there were still 12 seconds left on the clock. I was like, you could have had one more play that you desperately needed at that point in time. And it, I don't know if it's the, rookie fill-in head coach not, telling him just to do it, or if it's just the inexperience of the Raiders not being in that moment and not practice that moment. We'll get to that a little bit later with Prescott, but these things get magnified just like in a game of baseball. Why did that manager do this, in the playoffs? Because all eyes are on you at this point in time.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot more of it, it feels like.
Yes.
Which you'd think the opposite's going on now that guys have earphones in, and, it's like they almost need a clock coach.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. A dear friend of mine of 30 years, he tells me I can make a ton of money if the NFL would just make me their 2-minute warning clock management guy on what you should do and what you should not do. So just boom, this is what you should do, this is what you not. And he's right. I don't know if you get caught up in the moment.
I think so. I think everybody's got their job, that we've got to pick the right play here. This coach is worried about schemes and what's going on, and you think that would fall totally on the head coach kind of quarterback combo, but maybe they do need somebody to just step up and be in charge of that. That's got the bullhorn.
Or a buzzer, or shock buzzer. No, that's not right. But you even see that a lot with the running backs or wide receivers, not staying in bounds, on tackles, because you got to burn those timeouts. And like, why would you allow something to get spread all the way to the sidelines where the guy throws you out of bounds, as opposed to just taking a knee? The yards mean nothing. It's the time and the timeouts is what you need. And I don't get it. I don't know why it's so chaotic. I just don't understand.
In today's world, with all the money that sports franchises make, how can you not make room for somebody to do that? Because how is that any less important than play calling or what defense you're going to run? If it means you get 2 more plays, 2 more shots at winning a football game, I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, it's borderline win or lose on some of those decisions. I mean, and instead of Bikachi now maybe having a chance to beat the Bengals and not worrying about if he's got a job next year or not because he would have won a playoff game. I mean, that's the difference between being employed and not being employed in some places, So it would seem like to me that would be a very small amount of money that can CYA you, in an important game or an important time of the game. That's for sure. But yes, I mean, not to take anything away from Cincinnati, but I would like to say, how do we blow a whistle on a touchdown pass and there's no retribution about it? You don't hear the NFL apologize that the referees made they made the wrong call on the field, but they tell that whole crew Sunday that they're not working any more playoff games. So there's an admittance that something was wrong. So I don't get why you bury your hands behind the sand. Why don't you just come out and say they made a mistake? We all knew they made a mistake. We heard it.
Well, and it's something in sports that drives me crazy. The players have accountability. The coaching staff has accountability, right? Everybody in the game has accountability except for the officials. And in baseball, don't show up the almighty umpire. Not that anybody's walked in the ballpark to see the umpire, but if you show them up because you think you just got rung up on a fastball that was 6 inches outside, that affects your lifetime statistics, your baseball card for life.
Yep.
But every time they overturn a call from an official or an umpire, that should be put right here on their sleeve too.
Yes.
You know what? This umpire's pretty good. He only had 26% of his calls overturned last year.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing a percentage out there.
Sure. I get what you're saying.
There is no accountability for those guys.
Checks and balances would be nice.
The way the Cowboy game ended, with that guy touching the ball and running through. And I mean, okay, what were the chances that they were going to win the football game with one more play? But at the end of the day, they deserved that one more play. And
it just seems like to me, though, it would just come out in a press release the next day and say, hey, there were some mistakes made on the field. I mean, we all know it. We all saw it. I mean, they didn't have any problem coming out and saying that they made a mistake in the Saints Ram game on the pass interference call 4 years ago. They almost threw that guy on their bus so quickly, saying he did something wrong. It's easy. We all see it. And when you still want us to, it's almost like they're insulting our intelligence to a point. Like, we're going to try to keep this in-house, but we're not going to let this crew officiate any more playoff games this year.
Right. Yeah. And I'm going to say, I doubt it's the whole crew's fault.
No.
Right. No. Let's start having accountability for those guys too. Yeah. Let's start keeping track of who makes mistakes and how many of those mistakes are made. And that's how we judge them. I mean, it's, baseball does actually scout the umpires.
Yes.
And a man by the name of Larry Hardy, who I had the pleasure of working with or watching him work, basically, he was a pitching coach and for the Texas Air Hogs. And the man's been at every level of the game. And I found out his day job was scouting umpires.
Wow.
So he would literally go to major league games and fill out reports on the umpires on, are they in the right position? What are their attitudes like? So it was pretty interesting talking to him about a lot of that stuff because he spends a lot of time talking to the umpires. And, he and I and two other former major leaguers were having this conversation, and we started talking about what a major league umpire makes financially, and two of the guys didn't even know. They were blown away, and one of them, who had a 12-year career and several years as a coach, said, I don't really know they make that much money. I would have gone into umpiring the day my career ended.
Wow.
And think about that, because no umpires are former players. I think they'd hate that guy. I think they would hate that. I think like we're seeing now in broadcasting, now everybody has former players, but that wasn't the way it was.
Nope.
20, 30, 40 years ago.
No. And then you definitely, you actually, that was one given away. You had to earn those spots too, man. So, yeah. Very much so. Well, I want to go to the second game here. We got New England at Buffalo, and wow, this was a curb stomping of big time. 47-17 Buffalo. I mean, you can start saying that Josh Allen's a pretty good quarterback. I think we can start saying that now. The guy's got something.
5 touchdown passes.
Yeah. What about the weather? I'm sitting here thinking, the people of Buffalo are probably going, why could we have not started this game at 4:00 Eastern instead of at 7:30 Eastern on a cold night? Now I know they're used to it, but 4 degrees is 4 degrees. I mean, for a football game, that's kind of cold to be sitting in the stands. So major props to those Buffalo people sitting in the stands all that time. I can't imagine me doing that. No, it's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, they didn't choose to live there. I mean, it is kind of part of it. It's not new. I've been there, and my father's last home was about a 2 hour and a half drive from Buffalo, and wow, that's some serious cold. But yeah, we're talking about a quarterback, and that guy can play. And what a game that's going to be. Mahomes and Allen going at it.
It's the best game on the board this weekend. It's the best game on the board by far. I mean, you better score in the mid-30s, I think, to win that game. You better put mid-30s to win it, because I just don't see how either team gets to slow them down. But I did want to say, Mac Jones looked like a rookie, and we talked about Joe Burrow and his rookie game in the playoffs. Mac Jones looked like he was, a little wet behind the ears, to say the least. Now, in fairness to him, if your defense doesn't stop Buffalo from scoring on 7 straight drives, that kind of puts you behind the 8 ball a little bit. Yeah. But, and this is what I wanted to say a little earlier. I mean, I thought New England kind of was smoke and mirrors a little bit this year anyway. I mean, yes, I know they beat few good teams, but I mean, I never thought that New England was a really, really good football team all year. I thought they were slightly above average, right for kind of where they were at, but they need to get back to New England ball, and they need to get the GOAT back at the quarterback, because he took care of all those warts that the Patriots had for the last 25 years and Mac Jones can't do that now. I mean, and that's, be fair to him, I'm not going to put that on him to try to be like the GOAT. But, I mean, Tom Brady took away a lot of the inequities and the deficiencies of the Patriots because of his stellar play. And now we're finding out, when you don't have him back there to do that they had a lot more holes than maybe a lot of people were really paying attention to.
They sure did. And you look at that guy, the greatest quarterback in NFL history. And how many times did you hear people say, oh, well, that's a product of Bill Belichick's system? Kenny and Billy could get back there and do that, because that's all Belichick. And I don't mean to knock Bill Belichick.
Sure.
He's a coach. I mean, Hall of Fame bound, guy. But here I come, but come on. How do you let that guy lead? How, if there is still a heartbeat in there, I'm finding a way to put him in a uniform and throw him out there. If he's on a walker, I don't care. You know,
think about, I mean, yeah, Tom Brady didn't need the money, but all the discounts that he gave all the years at the quarterback position and allowed the Patriots to keep some of their own and go grab people to bring in all that time, because, I mean, he gave them a big time hometown discount, and he deserved to finish it out in New England.
absolutely.
He deserved to finish it out.
I'm glad for his career, though. I'm glad so that he doesn't have to hear that Belichick system crap anymore, because he steps into one team and wins the Super Bowl.
He's Boom. Validated.
Hello.
He's validated.
And
but the guy he left,
and they're not.
The guy he left up there in New England, he's not completely validated just yet. He's gonna have to win one without number 12 before we all anoint him Vince Lombardi. You know, we're gonna have to do that, because I said, Brady said, hey, I don't need Belichick to win one of these things. I'll win 3 straight road games and win the Super Bowl. You know, what a new team.
No.
It's unreal. It's unreal. But yes, so you know, I was thinking about how for 2 decades New England would storm through the playoffs, you know, go deep or go to the Super Bowl or lose an AFC championship game. And I said, and the one time that they don't have in the playoffs without number 12, they get absolutely run off the field. I'm going somewhere. Tom Brady had to been, if not snickering, he had to have just a little smile on his face somewhere Saturday night going, that's a mess up there in New England without me.
And you're right. You know, I'd forgotten about all the discounts he gave. And you know, and you said didn't need the money. Well, of course, his wife does pretty good too. But I mean, but and what is the difference? What is the difference between 20 million and 12 million? I mean, it's still that kind of money where you're going to be fine. You know, but who else is willing to do that?
You make a great point. I was just going to say that. Who else has done that? Who else at the quarterback position, time after time after time, has given them a hometown discount? Unprecedented. Nobody has. I mean, these guys are so about getting as much as possible, but then they preach, oh, we want to be cap friendly at the same time. You can't have it both ways. You know, nope. you can't have it. You can't, you know, as somebody was telling me before, you can't eat that cake and then turn around and say, and demand another cake. You can't do it at that situation there. So yes, I mean, you know, he's a GOAT for a reason. But, you know, he allowed that dynasty to last for 20 years also just because he got it. Now, yes, his wife made me worth $300 million, so 12 million to 15 million wasn't that big of a deal. But that's a huge deal on the cap age. You know, that's a huge deal. That brings in veterans that, you know, maybe you didn't have a chance of bringing in if he would have had 16 million more, you know, whatever. So, yeah, you got to give him kudos for that. That's for sure. No question. You know, and I guess leading into Tom Brady, what about the Buccaneers taking care of the NFC least foe in Philadelphia, 31-15? Really not a ball game. You know, I know that it seemed like it was a game somewhere about halfway through the second quarter, but to me, I never thought Philadelphia was ever going to come back and win this game. No. Hurts to me is not a passing playoff quarterback. I mean, you can kind of use, I think, Hurts as a fill-in, he'd be a decent backup as a fill-in, change pace type quarterback, but he's not accurate and he doesn't have a strong arm. You can't have 2 deficiencies like that in the NFL. You just can't.
No, not in today's game.
No, they're fit things in tight corners. You know, you got to fit things on time. You've got to get the ball out in a quick. Now, he's athletic. He's a leader. I mean, it seems like a lot of people like playing for the guy, you know. I mean, yeah, he's a former Sooner and all, but it's just that you have to make plays with your arm. And I think that's where I don't think his arm doesn't scare anybody in the National Football League. Be frank. So I think that you're kind of spinning your wheels a little bit. I mean, I know Philadelphia's got 3 first-round draft picks coming up, but there's really not a quarterback in this draft that's coming out where you say, oh, yeah, that's the guy we want. You know, and it seems like it's a bad year to have multiple first-round picks. So do you try to convince a Russell Wilson or somebody else like that to come to Philadelphia? Maybe you do it that way, and you do have, first-round picks where you can, send them off to a team. But, hey, until they get that situation picked up back there behind, Philadelphia's going to be a middle-of-the-run team year after year after year, and it's just going to be that way for them. And you can't play that way against the GOAT, especially not at home.
No, I'm sorry. It's the most important position on the field. And, if you don't have that one covered, where's it going to expose itself? Postseason. And it's I'd love to do some research on how many great quarterbacks, what they did in their first playoff game.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be interesting. I bet you somebody's done that. Somebody's done it. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what kind of, or if somebody just really was great in their first postseason game and then they were at very mediocre average afterwards, or if somebody was just horrific and got better. That would be really interesting to find that out. Heck, speaking of somebody with Big Ben wasn't very good early in his career in the postseason for a while there. He got much better as he got more experience going in. But yeah, there's people that have, kind of frozen under the lights a little bit. It's huge because it's the only game on, and this is where your legacy is really built on. Especially in National Football League. For quarterbacks. It's not about regular season wins. Those look pretty. Kershaw, he had pretty numbers in the regular season. Everybody was, oh, he's great. But then when that October rolled around, he was a different pitcher a lot of times. So, you've got to build on Hall of Fame regular seasons by your playoff performances. And it would be interesting to see what those kind of look like. It really would.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's the unknown analytics, that you can't tell. I mean, obviously you could see if a guy falls apart in a bowl game or something, but even there, I don't know. It's the analytics between your ears that no one can read. And I do believe one moment can affect the rest of your history. Because our brain is so strong. It is so powerful. And, I always blame Bill Parcells for Tony Romo's kind of last second mess ups that, right. We watched over and over again. And it was all created from him muffing that extra point.
Yep.
When he'd become the quarterback. He was no longer the backup. There was no reason for him to be down there holding extra points.
Right.
And it just created another dynamic that, made him feel like a choker. And right. So sadly, that moment jumped in his brain every time the lights got the brightest and the whole world was looking at him. You could tell yourself whatever you want. Back of your mind, you're thinking about it. Oh, hope I don't muff this one. It's a terrible thing. And, some sports psychologist is going to figure out a way to erase that, but it's a real thing. And I don't think unless it's happened to you, you know what I mean? I think some people just like, whatever. Yeah, it's just bad luck or it's right here.
Yes, it is.
The Einsteins of the world could use 30% of their brain. The rest of us are working on 15 or 20. And, what's that other 70 to 80% worth?
And every adult beverage we take, it takes a little bit more away.
That's correct.
Well, we do appreciate you guys.
Family.
We do appreciate you guys listening to us here on Balls of the Wall episode 18. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, Rumble, and Anchor, and Spotify. Just drop down and click on us. We greatly appreciate it. That will help us out. And also like us on Twitter and Facebook. And we, like we said before, we do any suggestions and comments, man, bring them on. We appreciate it. Hit me up on Twitter, and we will get back with you right away, man. We appreciate it. Well, I've been going in order. I'll save the Dallas game for later. I want to touch on the Rams and Arizona. That was the Monday night. That was obviously the Monday night game. Excuse me. Let me go to this one. Pittsburgh and Kansas City first. I'll go Pittsburgh and Kansas City first. First, we kind of thought that Pittsburgh was going to have a tough time scoring all year long. So when Kansas City scores, 4 TDs in the first 5 possessions, you kind of knew that Pittsburgh was not going to come back in this game at all. I mean, as much as I love Big Ben, I'm a Steeler fan, obviously. We knew last year he lost it. I think he took one for the team this year, salary cap wise, for the Steelers by coming back this year, because it's a lot less of a hit for him now going forward in the rest of his contract for the restructure. So, I mean, I think that he probably played about 30 games more than he probably should have played in the last 2 years, but that's okay. I mean, it never really ends well for a Hall of Fame QB. Think about it, all those years when you finally see them kind of go, a lot of people don't realize Joe Unitas ended his career out in the Los Angeles Chargers, in a Charger uniform. Joe Namath ends his career in a Ram uniform. It puts a sour taste in your mouth, yes. But when the quarterback goes, it goes quickly, and it's tough to see there. But you have to give Kansas City a little credit here, I thought, is that they seem like they're getting their offense back in order again, and that was, remember the beginning of the season, they were really spotty. I mean, Buffalo went down there and drilled them, I think, week 2 or week 3. They weren't scoring. It seemed like Mahomes was running for his life on every play. It seems like the offensive line has kind of calmed down, and it seems like now they're back to that Kansas City offense again.
Oh, absolutely. It's, a week ago, I picked the Bills to go to the AFC Championship and to go to the Super Bowl because I didn't like what I was seeing in Kansas City.
Right.
I mean, you know how I feel about quarterbacks, and Mahomes is, I'll argue, that the best athlete of any quarterback in the NFL. And I mean,
overall package for sure. I mean, you can maybe say that Lamar
from the different angles, the double play balls he's turning, the underhand, there's nobody like him. And, we're going to be comparing him to the Brady's for the rest of his career because he's got a chance to be that kind of guy. But I didn't think the way their team was playing, the way he was running for his life every snap, now I'm starting to wonder because, man, that was a different football team.
Yes, it was. Well, heck, I mean, some people were saying that they think Kansas City was going to make the playoffs, after week 7, So, you got to give Andy Reid some credit here also. I mean, I think you have a veteran coach like that. He knows there's going to be peaks and valleys in the season. Let's not get too emotional. Let's not get too wrapped up in this, wrapped up in that. And the one thing that Andy Reid can do, if he beats Buffalo this week, he'll be the only coach to have 2 teams go to play in 4 straight championship games. That is unreal. Eagles, he went 4 straight times. It'll be Kansas City, it'll be 4 straight times. I mean, that's pretty dang on good. And I know Andy Reid, nobody's ever going to put Andy Reid on the same level as Tom Landry or Vince Lombardi, it's that type. But, boy, he sure ain't very far, down that pecking order after that, because all that guy does is go out and win. And, you can be a naysayer all you want to, but, man, I know a lot of teams. I think the Detroit Lions would like to go to 4 straight NFC Championship games right now. They haven't been to 4 probably in their career, in their lifetime. Better yet, 4 straight times. And I think that Kansas City's defense is not the sieve that it was this time last year. Are they good? I wouldn't say they're good. I'd say they're probably mediocre. But, I mean, you saw last year, as fast as Mahomes would score, sometimes they'd give it right back up, and 2 or 3 plays later. So they are making some stops. So there is some improvement in that area. But it's going to be a whale of a football game between Buffalo and Kansas City in Arrowhead this week.
No, I can't wait to see that. I mean, it's almost a bummer that they're not meeting next week.
Yeah.
Just to see those 2 quarterbacks go at it. You mentioned Lombardi and Landry. I just found out something a few days ago I never knew. I'm going to try to put this up here. They were both coordinators.
Yep.
Offensive and defensive coordinators for the New York Giants in the 50s.
Yep.
I had no idea. And by the way, look at that picture. I'm pretty sure Lombardi's wearing a Yankees jacket and Landry's wearing a Mets jacket.
Or it's the Yankees. I think that's the Giants. The Giants.
Because the New York Giants?
Yeah, the New York Giants. Because the Mets weren't there yet. It's the New York Giants one. Yeah, and I think that picture's at the Polo Grounds. That they're at. Yes. Unbelievable staff. Yes.
Who's the head coach of those 2 coordinators?
Well, there's another side note to that. We just lost the great Don Maynard last week.
Yeah.
The Jets wide receiver. He was on that 58 team for the Giants. They actually drafted him. They cut him when Ali Sherman replaced Vince Lombardi as the offensive coordinator the very next year. He said that he did not think he would play another down in the National Football League. I guess Don Maynard got the last laugh. I think.
Yeah, I guess so.
He went to Hamilton. He played for the Hamilton Ticats for a year, then came back and started with the Titans of the Jets in 1960. But yes, Ali Sherman replaced Vince Lombardi when he went to the Packers that year, and that's probably the only reason why Don Maynard was not a starting wide receiver for the Giants in the 60s now, because of Ali Sherman. But yeah, what a staff that was that they had. I mean, to have 2 of the best of all time as coordinators. So you're actually telling Vince Lombardi and Tom Landry what to do.
Absolutely.
At the same time, man. Unreal. But yeah, I did see that, man. That's good stuff. I did see that.
Like who? I mean, I still try to tell who's better than those 2 guys.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who the coach was again, and I've gone brain dead on that. I'll look it up here in a minute. I'm trying to remember who the head coach was because they had a special on that. The Colts and Giants, championship game. When Michi, scores the TD. So, but I've got to remember who it was. But yes, so I wanted to say farewell to Big Ben. No, hey, it was a great career. First time on, 5 years from now, you will be in Canton. You will be remembered as one of the best of all time, and rightfully so. 2 Super Bowl championships on his way. Mike Tomlin and him had great success. Mike Tomlin's been the coach of the Steelers now for 12 years, and he never had a losing season. And he could put a lot of that because he had a Hall of Fame quarterback, on the other side. It makes a huge difference, dude. While everybody else is scrambling for QBs, you just keep locking up your Hall of Famer every year, and you're fine. So, but yes, Kansas City and Buffalo is going to be fun. That's going to be an instant sit down for me with some adult beverages, enjoying that track meet that I think it will be.
Oh, absolutely. 3rd most postseason passing yards in NFL history for Big Ben.
Wow.
Behind Peyton, and of course that Brady fella who's still adding to his numbers. It's like 27,007 and then 5. But
Tom Brady's adding like Cy Young wins. It's like we can't get a 300 winner bet yet a 511 game winner. It's like yes, the GOAT is something else. We did kind of mention this earlier. We love the Monday night playoff. It was great atmosphere, especially before kickoff. I thought that was great. gave you something to deal with the Monday blues a little bit, knowing you had a football game on that night. And man, the Rams, they absolutely throttled the Arizona Cardinals, which, Stafford wins his first playoff game. Speaking of somebody that's been around a long time, he finally gets his, and he played extremely well on Monday night too. We're wondering, Stafford came into this game, I think 8 turnovers his last 4 or 5 games, and a lot of picks, a lot of fumbles. So, he kind of had a lot of pressure on him to deliver. I think that was the reason why McVay brought him there, because he didn't think that Goff could, deliver consistently enough. And boom.
I had a problem with that too. I got to be honest with you. I was obviously mistaken, but I thought they were making a mistake there. And
I still think.
Goff did pretty damn well. And obviously we weren't behind the scenes. We weren't in the meetings. We didn't know everything that was going on. I know friends that went to school with him in high school and loved him. And he's a hardworking kid. And all I saw was a guy that did pretty good in postseason. And to see that switch, and watching him early in the season, I thought, man, they made a mistake. I think Goff's going to do better with Detroit than we ever saw, and maybe that's why they get paid to make these decisions, right?
Well, Goff got blamed for everything except maybe the Kennedy assassination out there in LA when things went wrong. You never heard anybody patting him on the back when he wins at the Saints, where he outdueled Drew Brees to go to the Super Bowl. And I think we said this either last week or the week before. There's a long list of guys that have lost to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. It's not, there's 7 other quarterbacks that have lost to Tom Brady, not just Goff, so, so it's not, I thought unfairly, like you, I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know if there's personality conflict. I don't know if that guy was did he do his film work? Was he a quiet leader? You need to be more vocal as a leader, as an NFL quarterback, I think. And it seems like to me, Goff's kind of got that real nice personality and real down, demeanor. So I don't know if that had something to do with it or not. But him and McVay never seemed like they got put on the same page. And with them mortgaging the future for a guy that's been in the NFL for a long, long time, it's doing now. It's doing now for the Rams. They've mortgaged so much for this, for this season and next season. If Stafford doesn't produce, what does McVay do then? It's going to be really interesting. But, I think this game was more about one team showing up and the other team looked like they never got off the plane. I don't know what happened to the Arizona Cardinals in the last half of the season. I don't know what happened to Kyler Murray. That interception was just atrocious that he threw there in the second quarter. We don't do that in the backyard. Better yet, in an NFL playoff game to throw the ball up like that. I just don't know. Coach Cliff, as we used to call him, Coach Smooth, he looked like the event was a little too big for him, last Monday night. And there was absolutely no fire in them. And I don't know what you do at this point in time. You've got Kyler Murray now going into the prime of his career. You need to start taking advantage of that, because one day Kyler Murray's not going to be as fast as Jesse Owens anymore, and that's going to be a huge asset in his game that's going to be lost. They're going to make him become a pocket passer, and so you need to take advantage of when he's a dual guy right now. And I don't know how close they are to getting better now. I don't know if it's more of a regression that's going to happen now, because they looked awful.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned Kershaw earlier. He and Stafford kind of grew up together and best buddies. So there's that little bit of doubt in me there too. Wondered what postseason thing was in the water they were drinking in Highland Park or what. Kershaw was a lot better in his last playoffs, and So you got to give him credit there. But I don't know. We're going to see, I guess, right?
Yes, we are. We're definitely going to see. And we'd like to end it with the game out of Jerry's World this past Sunday night. And man, I know living here in Dallas it seems like the funeral has been going on ever since about Sunday night, about 7:00. And it seems like we're still seeing taps being played as you go from one store to another. I know we talked a little bit already about the play in hand at the end of the game. For me, it's pretty simple. This game to me was lost in the first quarter of this game. Dallas wasn't ready to play football when they showed up at the field. San Francisco knocked them in the mouth early, took that early lead, and there was absolutely no response from the Cowboys on the offensive side of the football. And I said, you can't get down early in the playoffs and then have to keep relying on this torrid pace to keep getting back in the game. The playoffs, more often than not, you're playing against a really good football team on the other side. So it makes it even that much harder. And I think that Dallas has built a lot of their season around this year, beating up bad football teams. When they've had to play a good football team, it seems that's when they've been able to struggle offensively a little bit. And I think it finally caught up with them this time because, they gave up the big, they started off so slowly. And I just don't understand when you have a game at home and it's a Sunday afternoon game, the prime spot, how can you come out flat for two and a half quarters, really? I mean, they came out flat after the halftime too. I mean, I don't get that. I mean, there's so much pressure. You would think that you would almost be over pursuing or going too enthusiastic. It wasn't that.
Yeah.
It looked like they went to church, in the morning.
I would have begged for that problem, right? I mean, it's funny. I'll talk to a lot of baseball players before they go to a showcase. And I'll say, guys, be the guy that stretches a single out into the double. I'd rather you get thrown out,
right,
trying to turn a double into a triple, trying to be that crazy man, that it's way easier to dial it back,
right,
than it is to turn it up.
Absolutely.
And there's no excuse for that. How can you not be just insanely high on the moment? I mean, I don't get it. Are they trying to dull them down? Are they trying to keep it cool? Do they think that's smart? Because I'd rather see you guys hair on fire going crazy.
I'd rather you run out of gas, because you came out and you're holding on for dear life instead of the other way around. It's like,
absolutely,
you didn't need 2 hours to get ready to play football. That should have been done all week to get ready. And, you heard all the positivity. Well, they beat Philly the week before. The offense is wrong. We're going to run the football. And I mean, and again, it's the same situation there, Billy, that we've been kind of talking about most of the year. This team went away from running the football first to win football games. They went to where it seems like Kellen Moore wants to make sure that every play has his staple on it. And you know what that means?
No.
That means throwing the football, because it's not hard to turn around and hand off to Zeke Elliott or to hand off to Tony Pollard. That doesn't look pretty on the ledger. That doesn't look pretty on the resume, but that wins football games.
It does, and it opens up the passing game. It opens up passing lanes. It changes the dynamics of what's going on. And no, that's I saw it too, and we talked about the keys to the game. They didn't stop the run either.
No. And we knew the 49ers were going to run the football. We knew that as soon as this game was announced the Sunday before. All right, 49ers would come run the football. Dallas did nothing in that first 2.5 quarters to stop that at all. We could talk about the penalties. I know that's been at nausea a little bit. I would like to say a little bit about Dak. I'm willing to give him somewhat of a pass because he's been a pretty good soldier and been saying the right things and everything. And I know you kind of get emotional after a game. But as somebody told me, yesterday, says it wasn't like they asked Dak these questions on the football field as soon as the game was over. Says Dak had time to go to the locker room, shower, put his clothes on. He says, by then, your emotions are calmed down. And he says, And even when you get a second chance to refute what you said, he spit the bit on that one too. And then he takes 2 days later to finally apologize for it. Now, I know that he's an emotional guy. You're down and you're upset, but you can't say anything that promotes violence by any stretch, especially in a society that we live in now where it seems like we're on edge about everything. So, and I feel bad that he's kind of the fall guy on this. But again, I think it's been a problem about this is that they've been blaming the referees for most of the season. And it seems like they never let that go. And that was always kind of the escape clause for bad games. That took all the negativity off of Dak's game on Sunday. We're talking about what he said instead of talking about he wasn't even average on Sunday. It was bad Dak on Sunday, at home. So, it's a mess again. It's still it's a mess. And so I know you're a diehard Convoy fan. I know it hadn't been easy for you, but do you have any more answers now than you did 5 years ago, 6 years ago? It's the same.
There is a new NFL record that has been set with 11 playoff postseasons, no NFC title. I mean, not even making it to the NFC title game. That is a new NFL record. 11 postseasons without making it to the title game. I mean, that's a mess. I mean, that's terrible. Trying to come up with what Cowboy quarterback won a playoff game after Troy Aikman. Again, I think Romo won one or two.
Romo won one. They're both 1-3. Romo and Zach now are 1-3. Both of them are now. So
1-1.
So you got Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow has just as many playoff wins as Dak Prescott does. But I can assure you Dak Prescott is making a zillion more dollars than either one of those quarterbacks do. So if you throw that caveat in, he got paid to win these games. Now, you want to have a nice regular season, but if we're going to pay you $75 million, you better be getting me deep in the playoffs and not to a Super Bowl. And that's not happening now. That has, well, I shouldn't say it's not happening now. It hasn't happened yet. So, I mean, there's a lot of pressure. I mean, think about this, though, Billy, and I'll let you conclude on this. You're going to play a whole season next year, and it really doesn't matter. It's all going to be about when they go to the playoffs next year. I mean, you're going to say, okay, yeah, all right, well, they're 12-5, whatever, 11-6. Well, it doesn't really mean anything until we win a couple of games in the playoffs. And that's got to be hard mentally, I think, because you're never going to have that doubt thrown out.
No, somebody says it every day. You hear it. They don't win a playoff game, I'm done. And but you're going to cheer for them next year. You can't help it. And it's frustrating as it is. What do you blame? It's easy to blame Jerry. We need a better GM. But in reality, is the Cowboys personnel the problem? I mean, their personnel is great. They did what they did. How do we find a way to mentally get over that hump in postseason? Is it what you said? Is it just somebody needs to light a bigger fire under their ass to get them where they need to be? I don't know.
They should have played like a wounded rattlesnake in the beginning of that game. I'm just going to kick ass. I'm going to bite until I can't bite anymore. And that was none of that. It was, I don't want to really say it's the preseason-esque, but it just was like, it was just so unemotional. And that's what I really didn't quite understand is that, you're at home and there's 100,000 people in that stadium, and it's, we know what's on hand here. We need to win playoff games, and to come out as flat as a doorknob just made no sense to me. And I mean, I don't know if that starts with Mike McCarthy. I don't know if that starts with Jerry Jones. I don't know if that starts with coaching staff. I don't know if that starts with a very aging and maybe slightly overrated offensive line now, that was the backbone of this team for the last 6 or 7 years. I mean, when Connor Williams has his 11th holding call in 18 games, I mean, that's huge. You can't have those kind of mistakes, especially when it's the playoff time. And it's hard enough to win when you play a clean game. Better yet, when a muddled up game. So I don't know what the answer is. And I think that Jerry's probably going to lose a lot of sleep trying to figure out what the answers are, because he's had a revolving door coaching besides, Garrett. I mean, he's had numerous defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators. Jerry, like you said, I think Jerry Jones has assembled a pretty good talent team. Now, I think that he's gonna pay for maybe paying Zeke as much money as he did. But sooner or later, that salary cap's going to kill him on that, because that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money tied up in Dak. It's a lot of money tied up in Tyron Smith. I mean, there's a lot of money tied up in some people where you don't have much flexibility to really improve your roster year to year because of that. So you got to make those draft picks huge. And I thought they did well in the draft this year. So it's.
They do. They have, and funny, they've got another pick 24.
Yeah.
Well, they've got about 3, Pro Bowl pick 24s on this team already. That they do a pretty good job. It's getting over that hump, because what's the difference in all the playoff teams? I mean, really, except for talking about Wentz and not being the same quarterback the other guys are.
Sure.
And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's all about the quarterback. Maybe it's, as much as I want to cheer for Dak and want to believe in him, maybe he's not the guy. I hate to admit that, but maybe that's where it's at. But then again, is he the one that dictates the tempo, the way that team should have been like a bunch of rabid dogs out there? I don't put that on him.
He kind of reminds me of, and I mean, he's not the same level, but he kind of reminds me of Jim Everett, the old Rams quarterback. He had great regular season numbers. He'd throw out 300-yard games, 2 or 3 TDs, and then once they got to the playoffs, he would just throw up a stinker. It's like there's regular season quarterbacks, and then there's postseason quarterbacks. It's just the way of the land. And unfair or unfair, that's how quarterbacks are judged. And obviously right now, for Dak, you got a failing grade right now. You can't go 1-3 in wild card games, nonetheless, and expect you to have a higher grade than a failing grade. You can't. You can't go to the regular season and say, well, you did this, you did this. I mean, no, you can't do it. I mean, remember about week 6, there was a lot of talk that Dak may be the MVP of the league.
Yep.
There was a lot of talk of that. And then, obviously he got hurt, missed a couple games when he got hurt. But, I mean, if you take away those 50 spots against the NFC least, he's just pretty ordinary in the other games. And that's against better teams. And so I think it has to take a big substantial jump there with Dak. And then you're going to have to address that offensive line. There's just no question. I think you've gotten to the point now where it's too loose. It's the dam is starting to break a little bit there on that. And I mean, as great as Tyron Smith has been, and I mean, Frederickson has been, they're getting a little older. It happens. But the other 3 guys who are younger are not producing, Billy. And I think that's been the problem for them. Lyle Collins and then Connor Williams, guys that are 24 and 25. Those are the guys I think are failing you right now.
So we should trade Dak and Zeke to the Eagles for those 3 first-round draft picks. Got it all figured out.
You know what? I think if you're the Dallas, I mean, unfortunately, the contracts of Zeke and Dak will keep increasing, as this salary cap age goes up. Now they get higher each year, it seems, and the cap figure gets up higher. I think you're stuck with them, at least for 2 or 3 years. I mean, I think that there's no way. I mean, you have to have a team that's substantially under salary cap to be able to absorb the hit on a trade. And that generally doesn't work out that often, and it's generally a bad team. And Zach's not going to go to Jacksonville. Jacksonville already got their quarterback. So, you got to go someplace where they're not spending a lot of money. Cowboys are going to have to just fight through it now. And I mean, and to me, a lot of that's on Zeke. It's how Zeke and Dak play for the next 3 or 4 years. If they play at a Pro Bowl level, Cowboys should win some playoff games. If they play just slightly above average, you might be mired in this 9-6, 9-8, 10-6, 10-7, and hoping that you can win a first round game. But you can put Super Bowl aspirations, I think, behind you. I think, that part, I think it needs to be taken off the table. Win a playoff game first, and then we'll take our chances. That should be more of the goal than let's go to the Super Bowl, because 26 years and counting now, and you hadn't gotten close to the Super Bowl. So no, that's not going to be. But yeah, it's going to be a long off season around here. That's for sure. There's no question. It's a lot of people in my office building here. Man, I've really thought I wasn't here when President Kennedy was assassinated, but the person behind me lived there. They said this is what it feels like walking the halls now. And I was like, the president of the United States lost his life. Are you really comparing it to the playoff game that you just lost? But yes, it's been crazy. But yes, but we do appreciate you guys listening to us, man. It's my, I tell my beautiful lady at home, it's one of my funnest hours of the day is to talk to Billy Martin, man. I love it, man. It's been great to get close to you, man, and talk baseball and text and all that other good stuff. I want to keep doing this, man. I have a lot of fun, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as well.
Absolutely. We'll have some things to talk about next week. Let's hope there's something to talk about in baseball other than you guys drop your egos a little bit. And let's
will there be one thing? Won't we have Hall of Fame results, maybe?
We will have Hall of Fame results. I believe
we will have Hall of Fame results. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So that'll be really interesting, because we've got, some steroid guys on the ballot that looking like they may not make it if you're going on the preliminary early voting so far. And that's Clemens, Bonds. They're their last go around on the docket, and they're not at 72%, 73% they need. Can't remember that number. They're not there yet.
They're not, and it's, I don't know. I can take either side of those arguments, but then a former client, Joe Nathan, is also on that list.
Yeah.
And Joe Nathan didn't do steroids.
Very good.
And, well, he had the best save percentage in the game for a decade, but the closer role is so unique, and it's going to disappear. Yeah. Wagner's probably got to get in, but I don't think they will this time. I think they'll both get in down the road, because the days of the Riveras and the Nathans and the Wagners are numbered. We're not going to see. Yeah, we're going to see more committees and just not the typical closer, which I think could be a mistake, because it's, Joe Nathan was so mentally tough, because it's one thing, and I tell every player, you got to have the mentality of a closer. I don't know what I got in this arm tonight, but I'm going to beat you with it. Or if I don't, I will tomorrow. and that's the hard part. That's the part that sadly Dak's got to wear all off season, right? Yep. At least the closer got to sit next to that starting pitcher who's Jim 7 2/3 that he was winning, that Joe let him down. Look at the whole rest of the team, but he may get a chance to erase all that tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the tough part of what a guy like Dak's got to go through now. He's got to hear this media. He's got to hear guys like us talking about him. He's got to hear every fan in Texas saying,
Yep.
I'm through with this, and figure out how to win his next playoff game.
I think you made a great point also. The closer's he's got to have the shortest memory in the world.
Absolutely.
You know,
they have to.
He's got it. And for some reason, the Hall of Fame is not kind to the closers. I mean, it took Goose Gossage to get in there a long time to get in there. I mean, Dan Quisenberry's not in the Hall of Fame, and that guy was dominant for at least a decade at that position. I think of the Bruce Sutters of the world, the Steve Bedrosians of the world. There's a lot of guys that probably should be in the Hall of Fame that are not. And, I don't understand why there's such a hard-on against closers for the Hall of Fame. It's one of the most important things you got going right now. I mean,
the most important 3 outs of the game, right?
There's nothing more demoralizing to a team is when the closer goes out there and blows it. It's demoralizing. Ask the Yankees how they feel when Chapman has blown the last 2 years in the playoffs with walk-off home runs. I mean, that's just it, and you're talking about Chapman being one of the elites in the game right now. So I mean, I don't. That's a question I would love to ask the committee why they are so. I don't say negative against the Hall of Fame, but man, it's just hard to get in as a closer, and I don't get it.
It's the unknown. I think for a hitter, there are certain benchmarks. There's 3,000 hits, you're in. 600 home runs,
Sure.
500 plus home runs, you're probably in. Even with starting pitchers, we're never going to see a 300 win guy again, probably, but that was one of those. You're in. Well, what is that number with closers? Is it 300, 400? And then a lot of guys like Joe, for example. Joe didn't start out a closer. He started out. He was a starter for the Giants, and then had some arm issues, had to get surgery. They brought him back in the bullpen. Then he was a setup guy for a while. How many saves did he miss out on had he not just started out there? So it's a unique spot, and I think you have to take it all in, and they'll figure it out. It'll end up being those veteran committees that'll start putting those guys in. I think down the road.
That's what got Lee Smith in. It's veteran committee. Right? So I think the veteran committee is gonna have to clean up the writers' mess in a way, is what I call it. For some reason, there's just some phobia with the writers that won't want closers in, but then they're unanimous on Mariano Rivera. There's no consistency. Mariano got every vote to go into the Hall of Fame.
Well, and we're talking about the guy who was the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's the GOAT. There's no question. No question. Absolutely. But I mean, think about it.
Hey, he blew one. I mean, the Diamondbacks, remember?
Oh, absolutely. I remember. Gosh, yes.
And it wasn't like that was a rocket that was hit off. It was
that bleeder. If I'm Luis Gonzalez.
Duck part. Yeah, that's what that was. But
yes,
hey, it was what it was.
My man Soriano would have won the MVP of that game if he closes that game. Because he's the one that hits the home run in the 8th inning to put the Yankees up. Yes, that still kills me. Yes, I haven't gotten rid of it yet. It's still there, that dart. But I'll give him a pass. He did pretty good.
Well, I do look forward to talking about the Hall of Fame. It's going to be interesting, and let's make that a focus for next week.
Yeah, we will next week. That'll be good. Well, hey guys, we do appreciate you listening to us, man. And like we said, check us out on all of our social media outlets. Billy, I will talk with you next week. Enjoyed it. Have a great week. Enjoy your football. Kansas City Buffalo. That's gonna be the price of admission.
Absolutely.
Righty,
I got to cheer for the Bills because I'm a Bill Lee.
All righty. Well, I know one thing. They're going to be great uniforms that game. That should be a nice delight to see at Arrowhead. Have a good one, buddy, man. Appreciate you.